Russian Doll is one of the most acclaimed new shows in contention at the Emmys this year. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby, here with Marcel Dagenais, who did the hair for that show. Key articles that say, the hair is the real star of the show. What was the intention with the general hair design going into it?
I think what Natasha and Leslie and I were going for was a very like New York centric, Lower East Side kind of 90s cool chick that you would meet, like pretty much in New York back in the 90s and even today. So we just tried to keep a very like chill, not too made up kind of vibe. Kind of like Kim Gordon or Lita Ford kind of inspired hair in a way.
How would Natasha look without your help?
Well, Natasha has incredible hair. She has like probably three people's heads on her one head. So, without any love or any kind of styling, it can get very large. So, with that, I was just trying to contain it and really define the curl while still trying to make it cool and not too overdone.
So how long does it take to do Natasha's hair in the morning on the day?
Well, it's kind of a process, like before we even started the show, we were talking about how we were going to get this style, because originally we were talking about maybe blowing it out and then using a curling iron. And that just seemed like not the Nadia character. So Natasha and I were both like, let's have your hair air dry so that way, your curl will do its thing naturally. And then I'll go in and do all the tweaking and all the fine details to really make it perfect and make it match for continuity. Since we were doing the same night over and over, I had to do the exact same curls, in her fringe and, around her face and blah, blah, blah. So, usually she would come in and I would kind of force her to come take a shower before she came into work every day, which I know was annoying because some days we had to be in at like 4:45 a.m. And so, she would come in, I would set the curl with products and do everything I needed to do. And then I would send her off to makeup. Amy Forsyth would do her base and get everything pretty much, 80%. And then she would come back to me. I would finish drying her with a diffuser and then go in and do all the curling iron work and then send her back to Amy to do her finishing touches on makeup. So it kind of took like an hour 15 minutes. That was a long way around, an hour and 15 minutes.
And how is it working with such kind of hardcore continuity with the show? Is it frustrating, or do you try to change the hair subtly as she goes through these Groundhog Day situations?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain situations, she sometimes wakes up in the morning the next day, so we went for a little messier, or there's certain situations, where she's like with another character, a man, and so, after, say, a post-coital look, you make the hair a little messier. But I love continuity. That's like part of the challenge of the job is making sure it always looks right. So, because you're bouncing around so much throughout the day, like you're not shooting in sequential order ever. So, like kind of going back to that certain, like, say she has messy hair or, it's supposed to be like at the party and perfect. So it just depends. But I love it. Yeah.
And why is it a plot point that the character Horse wants to cut her hair? What does that mean?
That was part of the script from the beginning, and I don't really know. I think that was just in there because I think Natasha has so much hair, and I thought it was a great addition because it did kind of give me the opportunity to fake this haircut on her. And so I think just him in general, kind of when I was talking with Brendan, who plays Horse, we were talking about, his character, and I was literally shaving holes into his hair, and I kind of had to let go of the foundation of doing a haircut a certain way and how I was trained and how I've always done hair. And I just kind of let that go and just cut into his hair and shaved into it. So I think his hair was a big part of his character of what he kind of did with his self haircuts is what we were trying to show. So with Nadia and him having those interactions, I think it just kind of added something. I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to be a hairstylist and it never happened, I don't know.
So you've done this show, and you've done Broad City with Alana Glazer and Search Party with Ali Shawkat. So
Yeah,
I feel like you're kind of known these days for these kind of big curly heads of hair.
yeah,
But when you got into television, you started on Louie, where
yeah.
main character is
Hmm.
bald or balding. So how did
Right.
you go from that place to where you are now?
It kind of just happened. I've been working with Abby and Alana for probably 4 or 5 years at this point, and so with Alana and her curly hair, that's just kind of, we mastered her hair at this point and have a way of doing it where there's like a very natural, no heat, so it really kind of protects her hair. So I don't know if that's kind of a reputation I'm getting of just kind of styling curly hair, but I just kind of, each job I did, it kind of, each character was a curly haired, the main star was curly haired. So I'm kind of getting known as this curly hair, but I didn't intentionally do that. I wasn't necessarily trained to do just curly hair. But and the Louis thing, yeah, and people are like, "What did you do on Louis?" But there was all the supporting cast, and there was a lot of other people that I had to get through the works as well. And Louis, his continuity, I had to cut his hair like every 2 weeks just to make sure it looked always the same. You know.
And how did you get into hairstyling and into hairstyling specifically on film and in television?
It's funny because I was working in fashion. That's kind of my background, is a fashion background, and I was doing editorials. I had an agent, and I was working for different publications. And I met Abby and Alana on, my makeup artist friend Sarah Egan, who was the department head on Broad City at the time. She sent Abby to come get her haircut by me, and Abby and I just clicked like right away. And this is before even the show came out. It was right before the premiere of season one, and Abby and I just had a connection. And then Abby booked me on a Bust magazine, you know, cover story with her and Alana, and that's where I met Alana. And it was just like magic between us. I don't know how else to explain it. And so after they started booking me continuously, I was just totally in love with them and was like, I want to work with these people, So pretty much made it my full goal to do whatever I had to do to get into the hair and makeup union. And I started doing these indie movies and just to get experience so that the Abby and Alana could see that I, was trying to work with them, because you have to be in the union to work on, these shows. So I think it was really Abby and Alana just inspiring me to want to be part of that world. Yeah.
Yeah, that show, Broad City, I finished this
Hmm.
season, but both it and Russian Doll kind of take place in New York. Like, what are some things that we might see on Russian Doll that we'll never see on Broad City, or vice versa, despite their similar settings?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think Broad City and Russian Doll are completely different animals in a way. Like, I think Natasha being more of a, she's known for Orange is the New Black, but I know her as this indie queen from, Slums of Beverly Hills and But I'm a Cheerleader. So for me, I think Natasha went into this as a very cinematic approach and, kind of being more like a very long movie, a very long indie film. So with Broad City, it started out as this YouTube, the girls started as a YouTube channel. And so I think with them, it's more like, quick and sketches and quicker storylines that are a little more, they involve a little more hair gags and comedy, where I think Russian Doll is just more about like the story and the hair. I'm surprised how much like play it's getting, because it was kind of just like, it was just a background thing. Like most jobs I do, it's not about the hair being a character on the show. It's about just making everybody look how they're supposed to look from our discussions with the showrunners. But I think it's just two different things. Broad City has hair gags and funny things about the hair. Like we cut off Abby's ponytail in one episode. And, like there's just certain things that definitely differentiate the two for sure.
I think maybe my favorite hair gag from Broad City is the phone wigs that they had this season,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I made
which I've
those.
heard you say took a lot of engineering. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to know all about those. Like, can you actually use one in real life, even though it appears to be covered,
Yeah.
and design on those?
Um, yeah, I think they when I read the scripts for, the final season, I was reading through and I was like, phone wigs, that's funny, assuming that props, you know, would be handling that, because I usually don't handle, you know, any of the master props. But you know, then the production contacted me and they're like, hey, would you be down to do this? And you know, I really don't think someone who doesn't work with wigs could really figure out how to make a phone wig, because, you know, you have to lay them so perfectly. And so that was a challenge, because I was also prepping for the show, like thinking about everything that needed to be done for the hair department. And then I think I had to make 16 of them. I had to make doubles of the Alanas and the Abbeys. And then there was the prop ones in the briefcase. So it was a very interesting experience, and I feel like I learned a lot. And as far as practicality goes, I don't know if you could use your camera with them, but they do look cute with the wig on it.
And do you know if you're going to be submitting your work from Broad City for the Emmys this year, in addition to your submitted work from Russian Doll?
Yeah, I did fill out an Emmy submission from, you know, production. They did have me submit, so we'll see how it goes. You never know, you know, so we'll see. Yeah.
And what episode of Russian Doll did you submit as your showcase?
I chose episode 7. I forget the name of that episode, but I thought it was a great episode to really show each character. And we had the 1986 flashback. I believe it was 1986. So I thought that it was a great kind of just showcase of everybody. And it had each of the characters. It didn't have any of the stunt double work, but it did have enough of the other stuff to kind of show, you know, I had to match. Well, I kind of had to, for the Ruth character, you know, her godmother, we had to do a young one. So I had to kind of match, or what I would imagine her to look like. So I worked all that out with Natasha and Leslie. And with the Chloe, you know, we wanted to make her, she was a little schizophrenic. So we made her a little more frazzled and, you know, just kind of a little more manic looking. And so I think that episode kind of shows the most for me.
And what character do you think changed the most from your initial conception of their hair design versus what actually appeared on screen?
I think Maxine, in our original discussions, we had, you know, Greta Lee, who plays Maxine, and Rebecca Henderson, who plays Lizzie. We were kind of thinking about a color spectrum. We wanted to have a redhead, a blonde, like a platinum blonde, and black. So originally we were going to have Greta Lee be the platinum, because originally she had platinum hair, and Rebecca was going to have black hair for Lizzie. But Greta had just went back to being dark, and she's like, I cannot go back to bleach or my hair will completely fall out. So then we switched the roles, and so then Maxine had the black hair and Lizzie had the platinum.
And when you're working with such a diverse cast, like it's kind of key where you might be maybe a lot at the same time that you would if everyone had more similar hairstyles?
I'm sorry, you broke up again. What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. I'm just wondering basically about the challenges of working with a diverse cast with different hairs.
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, that's kind of usually the case whenever I'm working on a job. You know, there's every kind of hair texture, you know, so I think for that, it's never a challenge unless someone has really damaged hair or is, you know, like thinning hair. I think that would be a challenge. But on this show, everyone had really good hair. So it wasn't, you know, it was just kind of designing a look rather than having to like fix something, you know?
And where's the show in terms of coming back?
You know, I have no idea.
I feel like we keep hearing about it and then we never actually get anything official. Yeah.
Right. You know, that's the same question for myself. I haven't heard anything, and I spoke to Natasha a couple weeks ago, and we don't know. So I have no idea, man. I hope it comes back. It was such a like a unique show, I think, you know.
And what do you have coming up next?
I am starting a job. I'm taking a little hiatus right now, and then I start a job in July for Comedy Central. I don't know if I could talk about it yet, but it's a upcoming show, a comedy on Comedy Central.
All right. And I guess finally, I'll just ask about, you've got this Instagram account called Friendettes, I think,
Oh,
and I just
yeah.
wanted to get some background on that one.
Wow, you have done your research. Yeah, Friendettes is this dumb little thing I started. I have, over 400 wigs I have all these wig containers in my closet, and they sit there and they don't do anything. So I have this whole thing that I do with Polaroids on the shows. I'd take everyone's photo and I do this like little kind of collection. They look like playing cards by the end. But so when I have the Polaroid at home, whenever one of my friends comes over, I stack these wigs. I use this hairpiece from a shoot I did years ago, and it kind of creates a lot of height. And I torture my friends. I make them take photos, and I don't know. I just do it for fun. I don't know why I do it, but it's entertaining.
All right. Well, to our viewers, you can go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. We also encourage you to subscribe to this channel. And Marcel, thanks for joining us and also for sticking with us for these connection issues.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks so much.